This happened to me in 2017 when I was about 15 years old. The day was going all right. It was an average Saturday. I was just sitting on the couch in the living room, chatting with my friends online on my tablet. Besides me, only my parents were home because my older sister was hanging out with her friends. It was around 2:30 p.m. when someone knocked on the door. My mother went to check out who it was, and I looked over to the door, curious to see who it was as well. My mom looked through the peephole and she saw two men outside. One of them was wearing a blue shirt and the other wearing a black jacket. They were complete strangers. None of us knew either of the men, and we weren't used to receiving any visitors, canvassers, or anything like that. So since my mom didn't know them, she asked who they were, but neither of them answered that question. Instead, the man with the blue shirt said they needed to use the house. My mother obviously got creeped out by that response, like anyone would, and she asked what he meant by that. But the man just said that they needed to get in the house, but my mother responded that she was not letting them in and that they needed to leave. The man wearing the black suddenly banged on the door and tried to force it open. At that moment, my mom screamed and I jumped off of the couch. I was completely startled and I was panicking, but also frozen in shock. There were so many things going through my head, and that's when my mom turned to me and shouted for me to call the police. The men hadn't stopped banging on our door, and they started trying to kick it in. Thankfully, the hinges on our door managed to hold it in place. My father heard all the noise and came running from his room with his revolver in hand, yelling and asking, "What's going on?" But then the banging stopped, and we heard the men running away. My mother called the police. They arrived in 15 minutes. We explained what happened, but they said they couldn't do much immediately. None of us knew where they ran to or if they had any vehicle, so the cops couldn't do anything immediately, but they said they would see if they could find anything useful in the few security cameras around the area and talk to potential witnesses. The rest of the day passed by and nothing strange happened, so we thought that everything was okay, and it really seemed to be until the next day. In the middle of the night on Sunday, I was in the living room playing some games on my laptop while voice chatting with a friend on Discord. We were on vacation, so we would play games all night, but then I heard some strange noises coming from outside. They sounded like footsteps. I told my friend I had to go check something and got up. Honestly, I both thought and hoped that it would be nothing. But just in case, I brought my baseball bat with me and went to check on the door. As I was walking up to the door, someone unlocked it from the outside and started opening the door as if they simply had the key. I was paralyzed for a moment, and a man who was about my height but definitely larger than me walked into the house. He was dressed completely in black and had a mask over his face. He seemed surprised that I was there and he started reaching into his back pocket. It took less than a second for my heart to start pounding out of pure terror. My first instinct was to hit the man on the head with the baseball bat with all my strength, and I did it. It all happened in a second. I struck him in the temple with the bat and he staggered to the wall. Then, with the adrenaline still rushing through my body, I raised the bat over my head and swung it down at him again and hit the top of his head this time, and he fell to the ground and didn't get up anymore. But when I saw that right behind him there were two other men, one of them had just pulled out a gun and pointed at me. I couldn't see the gun clearly as it was sort of dark over there, but it was obvious from his stance that he had a gun pointed at me. I confirmed it after I heard him pulling the slide on the gun and immediately screamed as loud as I could and tried to get out of the way. But the man fired the gun and the bullet barely missed my head. But the flash from the blast and the loud bang were so close to my face that I got dazed. I fell on my back, and my vision was blurry and my ears were ringing. I was desperately screaming for help and crawling away as fast as I could. I could hear one of the men telling the other to shoot me again already. I thought I was going to die, but I managed to bring myself to my feet and run around the corner and out of their view. Everyone in the house had woken up to the gunshot and my screaming, and my father rushed in with his gun. As soon as he saw the men who broke in, he began shooting at them both. I think a bullet hit one of them because he screamed out before I heard more shots and they ran away. They got into a blue car and tried to speed away from our home. My father shot at them again. It didn't hit them, but the bullets hit their car. As soon as we turned on all the lights, we saw the man that I hit with the metal bat was twitching on the floor, and there was a puddle of blood under the wounds in his head. My mother comforted me and told my sister to call the police, but when she was about to, there were already multiple police cars coming. The friend who was talking to me on Discord heard everything and called the police, and many neighbors did the same due to the gunshots. Because the police arrived so soon, they managed to track down the men who ran away and arrest them both. The man I wounded got taken to the hospital, but I never got any news about what happened to him later, and frankly, I don't want to. Later, I found out that they were already wanted for breaking and entering homes, murdering residents, and then stealing everything of value. And those wretches probably plan to do the same in my house. I hope that justice is served now that these men are behind bars, and it still eats away at me sometimes when I think about it. Had I not been awake and gotten in their way, those men would have done horrible things to my family and me. I'm glad that we are all okay today, and I hope that we will never go through something like that ever again.